Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist, and today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles entitled The Great Pyramid and September 21st, 2017. Now, the Great Pyramid of Giza is in the shape of a square-based pyramid, and a square-based pyramid is a square-based polyhedron with all lateral sides as triangles, and these meet at a point called the apex, which is over the center of the square base. And the Great Pyramid of Giza is in Egypt, and it's a wonder of the ancient world, and yet it has a message for the modern world at the close of this age. And it's got inbuilt into it certain dates, and as we will see, one of these dates are in our immediate future, and that is September 21st, 2017. Now, the Great Pyramid has been studied in detail, and results have been published since 1957 by the Institute of Pyramidology in Great Britain. And we see here one of the images of the pyramid as it is today, and it is a wonder of ancient engineering. And here we see a three-dimensional schematic diagram, and it shows us what's inside the pyramid. There are two main chambers. This one is called the King's Chamber. This one is called the Queen's Chamber. This over here is called the Grand Gallery, and it's got passages. This is the ascending passage, and this is the descending passage. And otherwise, it's almost solid with masonry, so rock bricks. Now, the pyramid contains in its construction mathematical and astronomical knowledge that could only be understood in the modern age. And in addition, it has embedded in its structure a chronology of events prophesied to happen several thousand years in the future. Building seems to have started in 2623 BC. And the historian Josephus, in his book Antiquities of the Jews, places the building of the Great Pyramid before the flood. And so does Arab tradition. However, the ancient Egyptians seem to have laid claim to its construction. However, no hieroglyphs were ever found inside, and when it was first opened by Caliph al-Mamun in around 820 AD, it was empty of any treasures of mummies, so there is no evidence that it was ever used as a tomb, and there was nothing to identify the builder. So it is probable that the ancient Egyptians found it already built and tried to build similar structures. However, it becomes clear very soon that the structures that they built do not have the same type of details that we see in the Great Pyramid. Now, the four air shafts that it has to bring air into the chambers align with the positions of stars El-Nitak, Kochab, Sirius, and Alpha Draconis in around 450 BC. And so this places the building of the Great Pyramid before the flood, and around 100 years before it. And both Jewish and Arab traditions teach that wise men built pillars or monuments, because the word pillar means monuments, before the flood, in order to pass on their knowledge. And thus the pyramid is likely to be one of those pillars. And biblical scripture in Isaiah seems to refer to the Great Pyramid of Giza. And it states in Isaiah 19, verse 19 to 20, "In that day there will be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar to the Lord at its border. And it will be for a sign and for a witness to the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. For they will cry to the Lord because of the oppressors, and he will send them a Savior and a mighty one, and he will deliver them." Now, the height of the Great Pyramid is quite significant in itself. It's 454.5 feet. and that in inches, and specifically in pyramid inches, is 5,449 inches. And pyramid inches is a measure that is actually very close to our standard inch measurement. So the unit of measure used by the Great Pyramid builders seems to be the sacred cubit, which corresponds to 25 pyramid inches. And 25 pyramid inches corresponds to 25.0625 US inches. So it's very close indeed. In fact, it's so close, and because this is based on the imperial inch, so it was first used by the British, it's very likely that these units are so close because they actually were derived from the pyramid inch. Now the height of the pyramid, as I mentioned, is 5,449 inches. And if we take the numerical value of the passage in Isaiah 19 verses 19 to 20, and we add up the numerical value of each Hebrew letter used in it, and we get to the value of 5,449, which seems to be confirmation that this passage is related to the Great Pyramid. And it is one of the first factors that I mentioned that connects the Great Pyramid, this monument, with the Bible. Now the pyramid units themselves have embedded in them knowledge of planet Earth that was only understood recently. The distance between the center of the Earth and the pole is 3,949.89 miles. And this has been deduced from orbital satellite data, which when converted to inches, and the conversion factor here used is 63,360 inches per mile, we obtain 250 million inches, or 10 million sacred cubits. So the cubit itself seems to be based on knowledge of planet Earth. So it seems to be defined around the size of our planet. So the unit used in building the pyramid seems to be an incredible detail, and it should only have been known in our modern age because it actually required a satellite to measure that. Now the Great Pyramid has also built into it the number pi, and here pi is given in 15 decimal places. It's an irrational number, so the decimal places never end. So the number pi is a central defining factor for the geometry of the universe we live in, and it is defined by the circumference of a circle divided by its diameter. So what we see here is a circle. The circumference is the length measured if we move along the edge of the circle. That's its circumference. The radius is the distance from the center of the circle to that circumference, or to the edge of the circle. And the diameter is, of course, twice the radius. And that defines the number pi. So we know the circumference is 2 pi r, and the diameter of a circle is 2r. If we take the circumference divided by the diameter, we have 2 pi r divided by 2r, which gives us, of course, pi. So that is, and this, surprisingly, is inbuilt in the pyramid. So if we look at this image here, if we take the height of the pyramid, and this would be the cross section of the pyramid, so this is the apex, this is the length along the center of the base, this would be the base of the pyramid, this is what it would look like from the top, this would be the apex. So this would be the cross section. If we then form a circle with this radius, so here is the circle with the radius equal to the height of the pyramid, then that circumference is exactly equal to the perimeter of the base, and the perimeter of the base is the sum of the length of each side. So the length here plus that length plus that length plus that length is the perimeter. So we have that for the pyramid, the height is 481 feet. So this would be the height. And the perimeter, each side has a length of 755 feet, times 4 gives us 3020 feet. Then we can form the circumference, or we can calculate the circumference of this circle. So that would be 2 pi times the radius, which is 481 feet, and we would obtain 3020.68 feet. So the two correspond. So that means that pi is inbuilt in the structure. Then the required angle between the base of the pyramid and one of the lateral sides, in order to create this correct relationship to give us the constant pi, is known as the pyramidic angle. And here I use the symbol beta to define it. And it is given by 51.854 degrees, or 51 degrees, 51 minutes, and 14.4 seconds. And this is illustrated here. So this has to be the angle, this is the pyramidic angle that the builders would have had to use in order to yield that relationship that the height of the pyramid, which we see here, gives you the circumference of a circle drawn around there, or a circle of this height, equal to the perimeter, or the lengths of the 4 sides of the pyramid. Now that angle also gives us some interesting results, because if we take a cos of beta, or cos of 51.854 degrees, we obtain 0.618. And that number is well known to a lot of people, because 1 plus cos beta gives us 1.618. And that gives us phi, which is called the golden ratio. And this number called the golden ratio is a number which, when we add 1 to itself, it is equal to its square. So 1 plus phi is equal to phi squared. So 1 plus 1.618 is equal to 1.618 squared. And it is also defined as a ratio where if we have two quantities A and B, then the sum of A plus B divided by A gives you A over B, which is again, which would be phi, the golden ratio, 1.618. And this ratio is believed by the Greeks to be the basis of harmony and beauty, and has fascinated mathematicians for thousands of years. So again, we end up with the golden ratio appearing in the pyramid construction. Now, in addition, the perimeter of the base of the pyramid is 36,524.2350 inches, and 365.242 is of course the number of days in a year. So this number must have been very accurately known to the builders of the pyramid, because they didn't just use 365, they used 365.242. So that's accurate to 3 decimal places. And so, in addition, if we multiply the height of the king's chamber by pi, we also obtain 365.2423 inches. And here we see an illustration of that. So this would be the king's chamber. If we take the height and multiply by pi, we obtain 365.242. Again, the accurate measurement of the number of days in a year. And this is astounding that this kind of knowledge was available at the time. Now, other things that are inbuilt is the mass of our planet, because the mass of the Great Pyramid is 5.3 million tons, or 5.3 times 10 to the 6 tons. And this is directly connected to the mass of the Earth, because the mass of the Earth in tons is 5.3 times 10 to the 21. So all we have to do is multiply the mass of the pyramid by 10 to the 15, so add 15 zeros, and we obtain the mass of the Earth. And this again is astounding, that the builders knew the mass of the Earth. Then if the air shafts providing air to the king's chamber are cleaned of all sand, the temperature inside the king's chamber is perfectly maintained at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the same as 20 degrees C. And this is believed to be the perfect temperature for human beings, and what is used as the standard air temperature for planet Earth. So again, another factor about our planet that was inbuilt in the pyramid. Then another piece of knowledge inbuilt in the Great Pyramid is knowledge of the volume of the Earth's total land mass. And as the average height of all land above sea level. And this we know because what we do is we know the height of every point on Earth above sea level. And when the volume is computed, we can change it into, say, a rectangular piece of or volume, or a rectangular box. And then that rectangular box would have a height of 555 feet. The Great Pyramid has that inbuilt as 554.5 feet. It's even more accurate than what has been calculated as 455 feet. So often the values inbuilt in the Great Pyramid are even more accurate than what we have been able to measure with current instruments until recently. Now, other things that are inbuilt is the different ways that we can measure the year. The sidereal year, it's the orbital period of the Earth in days with respect to the background stars. And this is 365.256 days. The anomalistic year is the time, this time period in days between the Earth passing to subsequent perihelion positions, and this is 365.259 days. And the solar year, which we've mentioned, is 365.242, and all of these measurements are inbuilt in the pyramid. So if we measure the side of the pyramid, and AB would have been at the side with the caps in place. There were stones capping the masonry below it, and this is the masonry side, and this is what is below that. So if we measure the sides. So this is LMNO, MNO. So this would be at the basis it actually was built, and this would be the core masonry. So through inside these masonry structures. So there are actually 3 lengths that can be measured. And these lengths are so amazing that they give you these different values in sacred cubits. So if we measure this length from A to B, we get 365.242 sacred cubits, which is the number of days in the solar year. If we measure from A, E, F, B, so you measure this length, we obtain 365.256, which is the number of days in the sidereal year. And if we measure from here, from A to B, so directly to this point in the center, not going through E and F, from A to B, to this point here to there, we obtain 365.259, or the anomalistic year. So all these lengths are obtained from the length of the sides of the pyramid. Now, so knowledge of the anomalistic year requires knowledge of the fact that the Earth's orbit precesses, so that the perihelion position is not always in the same position. So we see a diagram that represents that. So the Earth's orbit is not completely circular. It's slightly elliptical by a very small amount, but it's still slightly elliptical. So it means that it precesses. So the perihelion position changes slightly every single year. And you need knowledge of the fact that the orbit is slightly elliptical in order to know that there is this different way you can measure the year. And this was obviously known to the builder, or the builders. Also, knowledge of the sidereal and solar orbital periods requires astronomical knowledge of the difference between measuring time with respect to the sun or with respect to a distant star. And it requires very accurate astronomical observation. So in the case of the solar year, the sun returns to its exact position in the sky from the previous year. So you need to make a very accurate observation to measure the time to 3 decimal places where the sun goes back to exactly the same position. And in the case of the solar year, so that's the sun's position in the sky, the sidereal year you have to do the same observation with respect to a distant star, which then returns to the exact position in the sky from the previous year. And again, you would have to measure time to 3 decimal places, in terms of days to 3 decimal places. And this does not seem possible until the modern age, but yet it is inbuilt in the pyramid. Now, also the sum of the 2 diagonals of the Great Pyramid's full base is 25,826.54 pyramid inches. And this corresponds to the period of time it takes for Earth's orbit to make 1 complete precession cycle. And the question is, how did the people then know that it would take exactly 25,826.54 days for the Earth to complete a complete precession cycle? So here we see an illustration of how we would measure the Earth's rotation with respect to a star. So you would have to look out at a star in the distance. And here for solar time, you would have to actually look at the sun until it returns to the correct position in the sky. So all these extremely precise mathematical, geometrical, and astronomical facts suggest that the Creator inspired whoever built the Great Pyramid. And he had it built as a sign and a witness, just as it says in Isaiah 19, verse 19 to 20, to the truth that God exists, that he is in control of the universe, and that he is also the inspiration behind the Bible, because the pyramid is connected to the Bible. Now, the Great Pyramid's location is in Giza, which means border. So the Great Pyramid of Giza means the Great Pyramid of the border, in keeping with what Isaiah stated regarding this monument of God. And because it states in Isaiah that this monument, this pillar, will be at its border. So this is the Great Pyramid of the border. It's actually right in the center of Egypt, but it is at its border. It's exactly at the border between cultivated land and the desert as well, and that's why that area is called the border. But also the Great Pyramid is exactly at the center of all land areas of the world. So the longest land longitudinal line, which is 30 degrees 9 minutes meridian east of Greenwich, and the longest land latitude line, which is 29 degrees 58 minutes 51 seconds north, intersect at the Great Pyramid. So we can see this here. So these are all the land masses. If we draw a map like this, we have the longitudinal line and the latitude lines, the longest that we can have, intersect exactly where the Great Pyramid is. So it is indeed at the center of the world. Now the Great Pyramid was left unfinished as it does not have a capstone, or the stone at the apex of the pyramid. And this top stone is the chief capstone because it is the only stone that is over all four corners of the pyramid. And this seems to corroborate with what the Bible says in the following scriptures regarding the Messiah. So this is from Psalm 118 verses 22 and 23, where it states, "The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes." And in Ephesians 2 verse 20 to 22, having been built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom the whole building being fitted together grows into a holy temple in the Lord, in whom you also are being built together for a dwelling place of God in the Spirit. So these scriptures identify Jesus Christ as the chief cornerstone, and therefore the Great Pyramid is identified with him. And the fact that this stone was rejected by the builders of the world rejected Jesus Christ, and he was crucified, but yet he is about to come back and take over what is his, which is this world. And so he will become the chief cornerstone. Now the Great Pyramid was built according to an extremely accurate astronomical, well, not just one, several astronomical observations, so that the lower portion of the descending passage is in exact alignment with true north. And in the 22nd century BC, the pole star or North Star called Uranus was exactly aligned with the passage, so that it would shine down this passage. No other star has ever done so. So the Pleiades in the constellation Taurus also were in exact alignment with the scored lines in the descending passage in the vernal or the spring equinox of 2141 BC. So this is the year that the builders chose as their reference for other dates built into the Great Pyramid. So here we see a diagram of, this is the descending passage, this is the entrance, and this would be the ascending passage. So these scoring lines are exactly in alignment with these stars. So this passage is the descent is aligning with the North Pole star in 2141 BC, and so is the scoring lines here in alignment with the star, the Pleiades. So this establishes a time reference for the pyramid. It's not the time reference where it was built, but it's a time reference that the builders have chosen. And then all the times inbuilt into the pyramid are with reference to this time. So then the distance from the scored lines along the descending passage back to the entrance is 482 pyramid inches, which would correspond to 482 years. And 482 years counted back from 2141 gives you the date of 2623. And this is the date when the pyramid was built. Then the distance between the scored lines to an aperture in the roof, so this would be the aperture, which marks the entrance of the ascending passage, is 688 pyramid inches. So the distance from there to there is 688 pyramid inches. And if we add 688 years to 2141 BC, we end up at the date 1453 BC. And this is the date in which the exodus of the children of Israel happened from Egypt. So it happened on this year. This is also the year when they were given the law. And then, so the length of the ascending passage then is 1,485 pyramid inches, which when added to 1453 BC, and we have to take into account there's no 0 year, so if we subtract 1453 from 2141, we would have to add 1, and we would end up at this date, 33 AD. So we take the time we ended with, 1453, and or we subtract 1453 from 1485. We have to add 1 because there's no 0 in counting years. There's no 0th year. We end up with 33 AD, which is the year of the crucifixion. Then the angle that these passages make with a horizontal line, so this angle here, is the angle of 26.3 degrees. So this, if we take that as a horizontal line, that angle is 26.3 and this angle is 26.3. And this angle is called the Christ angle. And it shows up again because if we start at the pyramid and if we draw a line to Bethlehem, here it shows Jerusalem, but it's Bethlehem. It's very close to Jerusalem. So Bethlehem, and we measure that angle respect to a horizontal line, we also get 26.3 degrees, the Christ angle. So again, the pyramid points to the place of birth of Jesus. So this angle is 26 degrees, 18 minutes, and 9 seconds, and it's called the Christ angle. And it points to Bethlehem. Now, the Great Pyramid through the Christ angle points to a date in our immediate future. And it points to Rosh Hashanah 2017, which will be on September 20th and 21st of 2017. So I see I need to fix that. I forgot to put a 2 there. And this date, because all Jewish days start at sundown, and this is why. So it starts at sundown on September 20th, and it ends at sundown on September 21st. And on this day, Jupiter, which is referred to as the planet of the Messiah by the Jews, will be from the Great Pyramid at exactly the Christ angle of 26.3 degrees below the horizon in the eastern sky. So this will be at sunrise. So if we have the pyramid here, and at the exact time when the sun has risen to the point that the bottom is still touching the horizon, Jupiter will be at exactly 26.3 degrees below the horizon. So this would be the time of end of the sun rising on Rosh Hashanah, or September 21st, 2017. So the Great Pyramid through the Christ angle points to this date, and at that moment, as we can see, the sun will be in that position. So this may be a very important date. The pyramid does not tell us what will happen in that date, but we do know that whatever dates it points to were extremely important to God's plan. So this must be, I think, an important date as well. And this may be the date of the resurrection, or it may be something else. It is the beginning of the civil year. It is possibly the beginning of something. It could be the new era. It could be that exactly 6,000 years have now occurred since Adam was created, and that his time of owning the planet is now over, and it's time for God to take over. That doesn't mean that he won't allow Satan to have his time. But it must mean something important is happening on that date. And I think time will tell us exactly what it means. So, in conclusion, the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt seems to have been built under the inspiration of the Creator for the purpose of being a sign and a witness to God's existence, the truth of the Bible, and for pointing to an important date in our immediate future, namely September 21st, 2017. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.